YouTube is live, by the way, Mr. Kenny.
Ooh.
We are live on the YouTube side of things. What? Let's go. Let's see how we did when we were away. 0 downloads the last 7 days. Oh, no, we're down 100%.
We haven't recorded video in a minute, though.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
Didn't do college football playoff.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's probably right.
Yeah. Nothing too crazy for me.
I thought Bama at 9 and Clemson at 10 was a little questionable. But I understand. So I'm not going to complain about it. Like, from a win-loss perspective, it was a little shocking to see Bama stay in the top 10. But I also think they're probably better than the 9th best team in college football. So, like, I'm not going to say nothing bad about it. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
Same thing with Clemson. Like, you can make the argument, but it'd be hard for me to pick 10 teams that I would. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would be hard for me to, if I were to list off teams. I'll say this: there's nobody in college football that I'm scared of. There's not a team you could tell me that I'd be like, nope, don't want to play them. I don't care. I want them all. But if I were to tell you like teams that I would rather not play than like Bethune-Cookman, it would be hard for me to give you 10 before I said Clemson.
I agree.
So there's that.
No, there's a couple teams in front of Clemson. I'd probably rather have my shot at than Clemson.
Mm-hmm. Very much, very much. There's 2 games this season where Caleb has been the leading rusher for the Falcons.
Real?
Yes. Pretty interesting.
It is very interesting.
They're both wins. Pattern?
It's a pattern. We found something. Ooh, ESPN giving Texas a 73% chance to win.
No.
Ooh.
Like, what is going on here? That seems too good to be true. Seems like one of those Vegas strategies.
Yeah, I'd probably take the over.
What is it?
64.5.
Ooh.
One thing about TCU, look at them. They'll give us some points now.
Oh, yeah.
They'll score some points too.
Yeah, they could score.
I do like TCU, but I mean, 3 remaining games against Texas, Baylor, and Iowa State, and then a conference championship. I can't bank on that being a win out. That's tough.
If they do win out, they earned it.
Oh yeah. I think they're gonna get destroyed, but they earned it. Oh, they might make things fun against like Ohio State,
Yeah, you never know.
or they could just be that one team that we get every year that just loses by
They could.
30. It happens every year. There's gonna be one of those teams get in there and just suck. And it just by the trends, it seems like it's pointing at TCU among the teams that are still left in play.
I hear a crazy stat.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon has allowed 1 sack this season.
That is pretty wild.
Georgia's fourth in the country. We've allowed 7.
Damn.
We're also the 7th least penalized team in college football.
Okay. So now we're about to have an ACC championship game among two one-loss teams that both their losses came against Notre Dame.
That's crazy.
Actually, maybe not. Maybe not. I know Sam Hartman has not been playing his best ball recently, but North Carolina still has to go to Wake Forest, and they play NC State last game of the year, so they got a little bit of a tough schedule.
Yeah.
They're still going to win their side, though, I would assume, because their side is pretty easy. Second place is Duke, and Duke is 2 games back from them. Duke's 3-2 in conference. North Carolina's 5-0. That's the thing with the college football playoff, though. It's all about the juice.
Oh, yeah.
This ain't no AP polls where it goes a little bit more by the book. This is a lot more opinionated.
That's the thing. That's kind of what we were talking about a minute ago. It's like Bama being 9. Like, you, if you look at their record and who they played and who they've lost to and yada, 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 they might, it might look like they don't deserve 9, but the playoff doesn't really look at it like that.
No, I told y'all what I thought about it earlier. I told you I put Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, and Alabama, and I would take my odds against with those 5 teams against almost any other team in the country. And
I agree.
I'm confident they would win the game more often than they would lose the game against any other teams.
No, I agree 100%.
It's weird saying that after Alabama loses to LSU, but I guarantee you play Alabama and LSU 10 times, Alabama's going to win over 50% of those.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what these stat updates look like.
Yeah, put my boy Kyle Van Treese for Heisman. They're in the nation in passing yards. What?
Put him in there.
Honestly, though, if we're talking about it, this has to be. It's not going to be, which is a disappointing thing, but it should be. It should be Drake May's award to win.
I would say him or Bo Nix.
Him or Bo.
I think. I mean, you can make the argument for Stroud, and you can make the argument for Caleb Williams, but I think it's Drake May and Bo Nix. If it was, I'll say this. I know the Heisman might be a little bit different. If the Heisman, I don't know what the definition of the Heisman Award is. Maybe we should Google that. I'm gonna Google it. The most outstanding player in college football. That's very specific. If it was like if the Heisman was an MVP, it should be either Drake May or Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm. Guys that are most valuable on their given teams. I agree.
They have certainly contributed to their team's wins. I mean, even Bryce Young, like those guys have contributed to the team wins more than I think any other players in college football. I think if those three teams, Alabama, North Carolina, and Oregon, had any other quarterback, not including like top five, like a top five guy,
Mm-hmm.
if they had, there's no way they wouldn't even be near the conversation that they're in.
Yeah, so completion percentage, Bo Nix is second in the nation. Drake May is sixth. Passing yards, Drake May is fourth in the nation. Bo Nix is 19th. Passing touchdowns, Drake May is first in the nation. Bo Nix is 14th. But I know Bo Nix does a lot more on the ground, so it's a little bit of a.
Yeah.
And
Like
then,
catch touchdowns.
yeah, and quarterback rating this year, Drake May is second in the nation. Bo Nix is sixth. KJ Jefferson is actually it says ninth right here, but I feel like this is all types of messed up. This counting thing that does not make sense. Stetson Bennett, that boy, 14th in the nation in passing yards. Stetson just ain't gonna have the touchdown numbers.
Does Bo Nix have quick stat check here? Does Bo Nix have 14 rushing touchdowns
Yes, 13.
and one receiving?
Yeah, so he got some tuds.
Oh my word!
Yeah, the most by a quarterback. The second most by a quarterback is Malik Cunningham with 11, and then Adrian Martinez with 10.
Bo Nix is tied for third in the nation in total touchdowns, and he plays quarterback.
It's pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah, 36 total tuds.
Top three in quarterbacks is Bo, Malik, and Jaden Daniels.
How many total touchdowns does? So 36. Drake May has 35 total touchdowns. He has 4 rushing. Surprisingly, Drake Mays ran for 513 yards this year.
That's crazy.
That boy Bo.
Dude, he's having a ridiculous year.
He gonna mess around and get drafted.
No, he really is.
He gonna play around and get drafted. There might be a team to reach like to put a significant pick on Bo Nix.
You playing like this? I mean, how big is he?
I think Bo Nix is a pretty big guy. Bo Nix is 6'2", 213, so maybe a little slightly undersized at quarterback.
I tell you what, if I was an NFL team and I was looking for a starting quarterback day one, I'd draft him before I drafted Anthony Richardson.
Oh yeah, definitely. You're looking for a guy to start day one?
Mel Kiper's got Anthony Richardson as the third quarterback on his big board right now. Like, what?
Anthony Richardson is not going to the draft. That is something that is not happening. I do not think.
I think him and Jaden Daniels will both come back.
Mm-hmm. I think
I mean,
AR-15. I think AR-15 might not be at Florida, but I don't think that means he goes to the NFL.
I mean, shoot, dude. I mean, you talking about pulling it up right now.
The boy's gonna be the next starting quarterback at Alabama.
I mean, Jaden Daniels could come next year and be a first round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, legitimately. I mean, this dude's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's completing 70% of his passes, 2,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception. He just set the LSU single-season rushing record for a quarterback. And he's got 10 rushing touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Now he can come back, put together some crazy stuff. The only problem is we're in a pretty QB-heavy league, or what they say is a pretty QB-heavy league, and a lot of quarterbacks that are considered pro prospects now.
Yeah, a whole lot, especially this upcoming year.
Oh, yeah. You about ready to get this thing started, Kenny?
About ready whenever you are.
All right, you ready for a countdown?
Episode 23, you said?
Mm-hmm.
When
2,
was
3.
our last episode was when? Last Thursday?
Yeah, not this past Thursday, the one before that.
So what did we miss for Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee?
Yeah.
All right.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, 3, 2, 1, and we are live.
All right, welcome in everyone to episode 23 of the Peach State Tailgate Sports Podcast. I am Kenny Cochran, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Jake Hill.
Oh, yeah.
We apologize. We've said it 49 times on the show. We're going to say it 50. We apologize for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. It's been about a week and some change since our last episode. I believe our last episode was not this past Thursday, but the one before. We celebrated Florida Hate Week in true fashion, talked about the Gators and how much we hate those boys leading up to that game, predicted an absolute butt whooping, and we came in there the week after and did not make a single episode up to the biggest game of the year, the Tennessee game. We had a little sick issue going on. Jake a little bit under the weather, had some health stuff going on, just a lot of stuff going on between the two of us, and to be honest with you, we had to hunker down and get ready to watch some very important football.
Got that right.
But
yeah.
But I know that we're both super pumped to get out here and talk about it. I know we've been itching to get on the podcast and talk about Florida, talk about Tennessee. Everybody's talking about Tennessee right now, so I can't wait to get to it, man. But as always, y'all, thank you so much for watching the show. Thank you for sticking it out with us. I know it's been a minute. We're going to get back to it, get back to regular episodes. First episode of the week here. We'll do another one this week as well, like we always do. But thank you guys for watching us. If you're on the YouTube side of things, you're watching us live right now, be sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, man, wherever you get your podcast. You give us a follow, turn your notifications on, give us a review, interact with us, whatever. Check us out on the Twitter. You see right here, if you're on the YouTube, right here, I'm pointing at it right now. If you're listening, it is at Peach State Pod on Twitter. We're out there putting in some work, putting some stuff out there, getting some content out there. So we'd love to see y'all interact with us, give us some feedback, and I'll tell you what, man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So I guess without diving too much into this thing, Jake, what do you say? Let's kick it off.
Well, Kenny, I can't get into this before I say great introduction as always, my good sir. And yes, I do want to apologize. I was dealing with a little bit of a sickness there. Went to the doctor. They gave me a couple different medications, and they got me feeling back right. So we are back in action, ready to roll. And Kenny just mentioned it. We missed a lot of fun stuff, but that is what we're here for. We're here to recoup on the fun stuff. Before we start kicking into the very, very much fun stuff, I do have some Braves notes, Kenny, if you'd like me to go ahead and knock those out the way first.
Yes, sir.
All right, so first thing on the agenda for the Atlanta Braves. I think one of our past episodes we've mentioned the guys that were listed as the Gold Glove finalists. Dansby Swanson and Max Fried did end up winning the National League Gold Gloves for their respective positions. Dansby, it was his first career Gold Glove, first of many, I assume. And Max, it was his third. These were two guys that me and Kitty both predicted to win these awards, and it really comes to no surprise. Dansby was a guy that had by far the best shortstop, best fielding shortstop in baseball season this year, and Max is just a guy that you can almost pencil in every single year to win the Gold Glove at the pitcher spot with his athleticism and stuff. Max is also named as a finalist for another award. He is listed as an NL Cy Young finalist. He's going against Miami Marlins pitcher Sandy Alcantara and Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Julio Urias. So that's a pretty interesting, trio right there. I'm putting my money on Alcantara. He was kind of the guy all year long, and I don't think that has changed. So I'm gonna go with Alcantara there. No disrespect to Max Fried. He's done with Atlanta for the past years, has been amazing, but Sandy was different this year, man. This guy went out and hurled. And also, you're right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy to go out there and win it, though, because his season stats at the end of the year looked very, very good as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be Sandy for sure. Obviously, NL East guy, we play him all the time. Unfortunately, have to see him pretty frequently down there in Miami. Dude just absolutely terrorizes everybody he sees. He's a big dude. He throws hard. He throws filthy pitches. He pretty much does everything you want to see out of a pitcher and you don't want to see out of a pitcher when you're playing against him. So, and then the numbers. I mean, it's all about numbers, right? It's all about numbers, how you perform on the big stage. And this dude just did it year in or week in and week out this entire season. So I'm with you.
Yeah, the beauty about baseball too is that in most major sports to win these big awards, you have to be playing on a competitive team. You have to be on a team that is getting a lot of spotlight. In baseball, it's not like that. We've seen Mike Trout win multiple MVP awards, and now you make the playoffs. That's just kind of the role. That's like kind of the role baseball plays. And the numbers Alcantara put up, the Marlins may not have been very good, but he was. I think they had above 500 record when he was pitching, which is very, very good for that AAA offense they run out every day. I also have another thing that kind of brings me to a question for you, Kenny. The Atlanta Braves have two guys as the NL Rookie of the Year finalists. I think they're going against Brandon Donovan of the St. Louis Cardinals, but he's not even notable in this conversation. It's Michael Harris and Spencer Strider. One of these guys are going to take this home, and I think kind of the big question in Braves country right now is who is that going to be? Because the whole year we went back and forth and tried to flip flop on who it was going to be. It was Strider for so long, and then we kind of jumped on Harris's train. And now that everything's over, nobody else can make up any ground on another person. Who do you think is going to win the NL Rookie of the Year, Kenny?
It's Michael Harris. I love Strider. I love what he did for us. He's an absolute dog. I looked at stats when we started talking about this pre-show. Obviously, check us out on the YouTube. We mention it every episode. Get in there in the live a little bit beforehand, get a little behind-the-scenes action. But, yeah, man, I pulled it up, started looking at it. I was curious to see because I know Strider missed some time there at the end, and obviously Michael Harris did not play a full season. But if you're looking at 162 game average, full projection based off of this year, the numbers are ridiculous for both of them. You look on the pitching side for Spencer Strider. Dude is projected for a 2.69 ERA. Let's see. 259 strikeouts. That's ridiculous. You talk about a guy that steps out there on the mound, face full of mustache, just throwing 100 miles an hour right by you, and you can't do anything about it. And he's a rookie. That's a ridiculous thing to think about. But I don't want to say this to discount Spencer Strider at all. I don't. But what Michael Harris was able to do this season, from a numbers perspective and for a team perspective, you can make the argument that Michael Harris was the MVP for the Braves this entire year. So when you talk about how much an individual contributes to their, specific team, I don't think you're talking about rookies in this conversation, but I don't know if there was another player on this Braves roster that contributed more than Michael Harris did. And let's talk about Michael Harris's projections, man, from the plate. In a 162 game season, this dude is projected a 297 batting average, a 91 RBIs, 27 home runs, and 28 stolen bases. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that alone, and just seeing him as a Braves fan, what he was able to do every single game for this Braves team. I mean, dude was so clutch. He was, batting for average, hitting for power, stealing bases, and then his defense, man. His defense is ridiculous. This dude should have been a Gold Glove candidate. Should have won the Gold Glove. And it was an absolute shame that he wasn't even in there. I know we have already talked about that in another episode, but everything Michael Harris brings to the team, for me, I think he's the clear pick.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually going to go the same route as you. I also am going to go with Michael Harris. One key thing for me is that it's a lot easier for position players to win a Rookie of the Year award than it is for pitchers, kind of similar to the MVP award. We saw it last year happen. Jonathan India took home the award whenever Trevor Rogers was absolutely throwing the hell out of the ball with Miami with like a 2.5 ERA, made the All-Star team, did everything right, and a guy that hit 269 with 21 bombs won the Rookie of the Year over him. So, and that's no offense to Jonathan India. He's a great player, but, Trevor Rogers, seemed like he was definitely the clear, better rookie. And Strider was a guy that was very historic. We saw him break multiple records. Fastest guy to ever get 200 strikeouts. Atlanta franchise record for most strikeouts in the game was 16. Strider did a whole lot, but, a guy like Michael Harris that people get to see every single day and get to see the production. Legit, there's a super good argument. This is the MVP of this Atlanta Braves team that won over 100 games as a rookie. I agree with you. I think Michael Harris is the pick. But if it does go to Strider, I also would not be mad, obviously. May the best man win, but my money would be on Michael Harris.
Right, and I think it's probably you can't really make the bias claim really because they're both Braves, but from just an individual perspective, like from a fan of the team, I'm a guy, and I know you are too. Like if I can, I'll try and watch all 162. And if I were to guess, I'd say I probably saw like 135, 140 of the 162. Like the Braves are just something that they're always on TV. It's always something you can watch, and we love the team. You get so attached to these players. It's so much different than football, right? Like obviously we love the Dogs, we love the Falcons, and I'm not sitting here trying to say that I love baseball more than football because that's not the case. I'm a naturally football lover, but when you're seeing a football team play, they got full pads on, they got the helmet on, they go out there, play 60 minutes, and then they leave. If they get a post-game interview, they get a post-game interview. But in baseball, you're seeing these guys, you're seeing how they react to stuff. You see them in the field, you see them at the plate. They're not wearing a helmet. You see their facial reactions. It's so interactive, too, because when you're watching a Braves broadcast, pregame, postgame, you get to know these guys. And I think just seeing what Michael Harris has done throughout this entire year of watching him play, like whenever the Braves needed something clutch, whenever we needed a clutch hit in the top of the ninth inning, bottom of the ninth inning, whatever it is, or a guy to go out there and make a play on defense to save a run, he was the guy. I mean, he would throw somebody out at home. He'd hit a clutch home run. He'd hit a base, a gapping base hit to a single or a double to drive in the winning run. Like the things he was able to do, I mean, he was just literally ice cold as a rookie. And that doesn't mean Spencer Strider wasn't. Spencer Strider certainly was, but you mentioned it. I mean, position players get a lot more notoriety than pitchers. And Michael Harris, man, what he brings to this Braves team is ridiculous. And that's why he got the contract, and that's why he's going to be a staple on this team for the next 8 years.
Yeah, the beauty of this whole thing is that no matter who wins the NL Rookie of the Year, both of these guys are locked up for a long time, and they are both very, very fun players to watch. Anytime you get to see either of these kids on the TV, days that Strider gets to start or every single day for Michael Harris, they are most likely going to do something that is going to make you very excited. That brings me to my last and final note for the Braves. A minor move, but the offseason did get kind of kicked off. World Series is over by now. Houston is the World Series champs for anybody out there that does not know yet. But the Braves have made a move. We have traded minor league pitcher Dylan Spain to the Colorado Rockies for outfielder Sam Hilliard. I don't know too much about Sam Hilliard. Very light things. He's been a guy that's kind of jumped up and down from AAA to the major leagues the past couple of years. I want to say he's a 28-year-old. He's a 28-year-old lefty. I've heard a couple things about him that he has really, really good tools. He's a bigger guy, big time power, can run, can play a lot of different outfield spots. Excuse me. A lot of different outfield spots, and he just has not been able to put together much success. It's a very, very low leverage type move. Obviously, you don't really mind giving up a guy like Dylan Spain. No offense, Dylan Spain, we love you on the podcast, but
fan of the show.
Yeah, you don't really, probably so. I think he was playing in independent league, but you don't really mind giving up something like that. This is just a lottery ticket that we've seen Alex Anthopoulos, love to try to bring into Atlanta and try to spark something in them. This Braves coaching staff has done a really, really good job of that in the past, bringing in kind of random guys and kind of turning them into maybe everyday names for Braves fans, guys like Guillermo Heredia and Orlando Arcia. So this is just another one of those type moves. Not going to be your superstar on your team, but could turn out to be somebody that makes an impact at some point. That is it on Sam Hilliard and the Atlanta Braves for me, Kenny. Is there any final touching points you want to put out there?
No, man, that's really it for me. Kind of like you said you didn't know much about this guy. I actually know nothing about this guy, so can't really give you any insight there. But yeah, you don't give up a lot. You get somebody who apparently has all the tools in the world. So I don't know. Maybe it's a depth piece. Maybe who knows? 28-year-old lefty. I don't really have anything to say about it.
Yeah, anytime Alex Anthopoulos makes a move, you just keep your eyes open. Maybe he might turn out to be something, or maybe he might be, he might not even make it out of spring training. Who cares? It's not a big move at all. So we're just gonna pass it by, and we're gonna root for Sam Hilliard and hope he can, bring a little bit of fire to this Atlanta Braves team. But getting off the Atlanta Braves, that kind of tips me off a little bit into the Atlanta Hawks before we get going into football. I know you like that little tip-off reference.
Sir.
We've missed a lot of action, so I'm not going to go too far back. I do want to mention, as of right now, it is Tuesday, November 8th at 9:21 p.m. I'm going to give you a little time check. There's no NBA action today because yesterday every single NBA team played. There was not every team had a game yesterday, so there's no action tonight. But the Hawks are on a 3-game win streak right now after beating Milwaukee Monday night in Atlanta at State Farm Arena. And this is very, very notable for Hawks fans. If you did not watch the game, Trae Young actually missed the game with a shin injury. He got banged up a little bit in that New Orleans game, I want to say, with the eye issue. He came back out, had the funny looking glasses on. And then I think he had an issue with maybe Zion or somebody. I think Zion might have landed on him and messed up his shin or calf. There was a little bit of like going back and forth on which one it was. So I think it's listed as a shin issue right now. So we're gonna roll with that. And this Hawks team, I'm not gonna go back and cover all the games. We're just gonna focus on this Milwaukee game because this is really the biggest game of the season thus far. This is the Milwaukee team that came into the night 9-0, the top team in the East for the NBA. And this Hawks team had some guys step up. DeJounte Murray is a guy that, we mentioned a lot on this podcast talking about the Atlanta Hawks. He's a guy that we have high hopes for, and we kind of expect a lot from DeJounte, and he gave us exactly that, kind of taking over the number one player role with Trae Young out. But the unsung hero, a guy that I think a lot of Hawks fans were really, really excited to see, the 19-year-old kid from Duke, AJ Griffin. The kid comes out and plays 31 minutes last night against a championship contending team with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the floor, and drops 24 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals. Just absolutely plays a hell of a game. His shot was aggressive, man. He was trying to heave him up there, and he was making him. This is something with AJ Griffin we've seen in the little spurts he's played so far this year. He has the ability to make a lot of shots. His jump shot is silky smooth, and seeing him play his first real NBA minutes in a game, he was a plus 28 in this game, to put it a little bit into perspective, the highest on the whole team. It was really, really nice to see. I hope we get to see some more AJ Griffin minutes. I know that primarily the reason he was playing so much was because Trae Young was out. He was kind of filling one of them wing roles with Aaron Holiday kind of taking Trae Young's spot. But I hope we get to see more AJ Griffin, man. He is so much fun to watch, and I know fans like me and Kenny who love the young guys, love the question marks out there that could turn out to be nothing but could be, the next Klay Thompson or whatever you want to say, whatever shooter you want to compare him to. That's always fun to see. And whenever he comes out in balls like this, it was awesome.
No, absolutely, man. And you talk about this Hawks team and the lack of depth that we've had in the past, and how excited we were to get a guy like DeJounte Murray. And I think that's just a huge thing when you talk about a matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks, who you mentioned it. This team's undefeated, definitely top dog in the East, one of the top dogs in the NBA. And the Hawks come in, touting a 6-3 record without their number one scorer in this game. And you see a guy like DeJounte Murray step up with I believe, he had a double-double in this game. I know he had 25 points. I don't know.
25, 11, and 8. 25 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds, and 3 steals for DeJounte.
That's it, yeah. And another thing I wanted to talk about too, man, when we're talking about depth and we're talking about guys contributing, you mentioned AJ Griffin, and I just mentioned DeJounte Murray, but Clint Capella, man. Clint Capella is a guy that's been a little bit slow to start the year, a guy that usually is a big contributor offensively and defensively. Back-to-back games against the Pelicans, 19 rebounds, against the Bucks, 12 rebounds. So you see Clint Capella getting a little bit down and dirty. Seems like he might be coming to a little bit. So hopefully we get to see him contribute a little bit more, and we'll get Trae back from injury and get him back right. Hopefully he completely, gets back from that eye injury and that shin injury and comes out there. But it seems like, I don't want to jinx us a little bit, but maybe we're losing the inefficiency bug a little bit.
I hope so, man. I really, really hope so. A 38% shooting percentage from 3-point range, I will take that any given night for this Atlanta Hawks team. Please and thank you. That was something that a lot of people talked about going to this season, especially without Bogdanovich, is how this Atlanta Hawks team is going to shoot the ball, because we have a lot of guys that can shoot the ball, but maybe not known for being the most efficient shooters in the world. I think that's kind of been the stigma around Trae Young, is that he likes to take the crazy shots, and for the most part, he is an efficient shooter at the NBA level. He's a lot more efficient than, what people thought he was going to be. But he still does have a tendency sometimes to have those, 1 for 8 nights from 3-point range and stuff like that. But seeing DeJounte shoot the ball well, and Justin Holiday is another guy I want to mention. 14 points, going 4 for 7 from 3-point range is a good thing to see from I think like 32-year-old veteran. Justin Holiday's a good player, so yeah, the Hawks have a lot of things to look forward to. It was nice to mention that having Trae Young out and the depth that you had mentioned. This is a game that in the past we would have penciled in as a loss, most likely, like before the game even started. But having a guy like DeJounte Murray that can fill that point guard role, and then in the starting lineup, you also have guys like Clint and John and DeAndre around him, with an improved bench that I would say from last year, guys like Onyeka Okongwu getting better. Jalen Johnson replacing Danilo Gallinari as that backup power forward. I love Gallo. Gallo was just a little bit of a, he was a little bit hot cold guy. He would win you games some nights, but he would lose you games others. So I think this is an improved Hawks team, and we'll see a lot of progression going on. I had another thing I kind of want to mention, Kenny, and I don't really expect you to talk on this because this is not something we talked about beforehand. But whenever you get time, go look up Kevin Huerter's game-winning attempt in Sacramento last night against Golden State, and the foul that Golden State committed that was not called on his not game winner. It was they were trying to tie the game on a 3-point attempt. But go check it out whenever you get time because it was very interesting. And I also have to let you know, the Red Mamba is sporting a headband now, so we're getting pretty legit in Sacramento. That was the first time I checked in on Kevin was yesterday, and he looks good with the headband. Him and Swiper De'Aaron Fox are it look like they're having some fun over there in Sacramento.
I actually saw it. They're talking about it on ESPN this morning. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I have been following Kevin Huerter biblically. I love that man.
Yeah. I think every Hawks fan out there, we might have traded him, and I'm not even too upset we traded him because I think that this opens up a door for Kevin. I think Kevin's scoring 17 points a game this year. So letting Kevin Huerter go over to Sacramento, who's not really a great team, and be able to put up his numbers. We know Kevin Huerter can score a basketball. That has never been a question from any Hawks fan. He's shooting 52% from 3 this year. I don't have the number in front of me, but I looked it up earlier. I'm pretty sure it's 52%. He's scoring like 17 points per game. So Kevin, keep on balling out. I just want to let you know, Hawks fans still love you.
Oh yeah, we will always love the Red Mamba.
Very nice. I don't want to get into too much look ahead stuff because I know we have another podcast this week, so I'll save that for later. But that wraps up my Hawks talk for now. Big win against big win against Milwaukee, and let's continue the success on. We're 7-3 right now. The Hawks have never missed the playoffs while starting the season 7-3, so looking promising.
100%.
Kenny, what does this bring us into? I'll pass the baton to you.
All right, before we rip into the heavy hitter stuff. Weekly Canes update.
Okay, look, Canes update. Okay.
Weekly Canes update. Carolina Hurricanes currently second in the Metropolitan Division, sporting the third, maybe fourth. I know there's some games happened last night. Since I checked, best record in the NHL. Team is scoring a ton of points and doing what we do best, playing amazing defense. So the boys are out there balling. We had a bad loss in the last game against Toronto. Toronto's a very good team. We got a couple days off, and then we're heading into tomorrow night's game against Florida. And then, not looking ahead or anything, but I am looking ahead, so whatever. But we got a rematch Thursday, a game I'm very, very pumped about. 7 o'clock, puck drop against the Edmonton Oilers, taking on Connor McJesus and the boys who we traveled up there to Edmonton a couple weeks ago and got our butts handed to us. Gave up 6 goals in that game, which is super uncommon for your best defensive team in the NHL. So looking for a big revenge game there, and but very, very excited. And then we follow that up with a November 12th matchup against your reigning Stanley Cup champs, the Colorado Avalanche. So we got some big games coming up, man. We actually got not a doubleheader, but two games against the Avalanche coming up next week. So big games coming up. We got a couple days off. Got some guys banged up. Really, really needed this. I know Freddie Anderson was dealing with a little bit of a nagging injury, and that was really, really hurting him. So you saw Antti Ranta get back there in the net, and love Antti. Can't complain about him, but Freddie Anderson is certainly top 5 tendy in the NHL, and anytime you get that guy between the sticks, you want to have him back there. So weekly Canes update. Nothing too crazy, but the boys are playing really, really good puck right now. We need to keep it up.
Go Canes.
All right, baby. Let's head into it, Jake. You ready to talk some dogs?
Let's go. Okay, let me contain myself. Okay.
All right, baby. Let's go, Dog Nation. It's been a couple weeks, week and a half, however long it's been. I don't know. But we're fired up, man. We talked about Florida Hate Week. We talked about everything that we hate about those nasty, disgusting, waste of space, waste of air Florida Gators. We talked about it. We came out and talked about how we thought the game was going to go. It was the largest spread in series history. Jake and I both said we are going to throw it all over those boys. We are going to run it all over those boys. They are not going to be able to do anything against us. And boys and girls, what happened?
You're right.
That happened. Dogs come out there and dominate Florida, 42-20 win. It was a little bit closer, or looks a little bit closer than it actually was, and it still wasn't close. 22-point victory for the Dogs. Would have liked to see them cover. Came up half a point shy, but hey, when you're 22.5-point favorite against an SEC team and you win by 22, you take it. You don't complain about it. You take it and you roll on. Absolute dominant win, man. Stetson Bennett came out there, threw for 316 yards. Dajon Edwards led the team. First solo 100-yard rushing performance for a Dog this season, and that is Dajon Edwards with 106. Brock Bowers continues to show why he is the best player in college football. Came out there with 154 receiving yards. Absolute dog, man. This team started humming about 4 weeks ago, headed off that kind of a lackluster performance at Missouri. We talked about how we came out there and routed Auburn, played really good there. Came out there and destroyed Vandy in a shutout, played really good there. And we're hoping we could keep that momentum up, and we carried it right into Jacksonville in the world's largest cocktail party and did the exact same thing there.
Yeah, this was a fun game, and Florida fans, Georgia fans, any fan that wants to listen right here, 42-20 makes this game seem a lot closer than what it was, because we were a Kenny McIntosh fumble and a Malachi Starks rare freshman mistake away from this game being a lot more ugly. Malachi had got burned a little bit. He kind of bit a little bit inside on a post route, and the deep ball was wide open on the right side of the field. Happens to everybody. And Kenny McIntosh had a ball. He ran up the middle. Was it Kenny McIntosh? I think fumbled the ball. I think he ran the ball up the middle. Might have fumbled it. Now I'm about to go play by play. It was let's see.
It was Kenny Mac.
Okay, so yeah, Kenny McIntosh fumble. So there was a couple things in this game that, kind of kept Florida in the game and kept them alive. Stetson, he had a good game through the air, but he also did throw 2 interceptions, something that we're not really used to seeing with Stetson. This year and last year he was pretty good about keeping the interception numbers down. But this is a game that we won by 22 points by losing the turnover battle by 3. Surprisingly, Florida did not turn over the ball one time. But we should take that as a positive, because if we turn the ball over 3 times against a team that did not turn the ball over once, and we still beat them by 22, I will take that as a win all day long. And you mentioned it. Dude, since the Missouri game, people like to hold that Missouri game against these Georgia Bulldogs so much. We don't care about the Samford game. We are not worried about one. We're worried about y'all holding Missouri against us. That was one game, and other than that, we have shown that we are the best team in the country continuously. And a little bit of a look ahead, but we're going to talk about why we are the best team in the country in just a couple minutes.
We absolutely are going to talk about that. And I will say in this game, man, I'm actually pulling up the rankings right now just out of curiosity to see what this Florida looks like in total offense. Give me a brief second here, ladies and gentlemen. Florida is 41st in the nation. They average 430 yards per game on offense. I want to see. Georgia, 555 yards of total offense in this game. Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous. Just about 200 yards more than Florida. You talk about sheer dominance, and Jake, you mentioned it with the score. I said it too. Score looks closer than it was. A couple, rookie mistakes, I guess you could call it, just kind of inopportune situations. One of those things I want to talk about is Dom Blaylock getting robbed.
Yeah.
In one of the most ridiculous interceptions I've ever seen in my life. No clue whatsoever who the guy was that robbed that ball from Don Blaylock. But one thing we have talked about on this show time and time again is how Dominic Blaylock seems to be the guy with hands of steel, where you need a play, you throw it to Dom, Dom goes up, gets it, kind of like Brock Bowers-esque. The ball hits his hands, he doesn't give, he just snatches it, brings it down. Stetson threw a beautiful, you could call it an underthrow. I don't know if it was a accidental underthrow or back shoulder play at the sideline. I'm not sure, but I'm going to call it a back shoulder. It looked like it was intended to be a back shoulder play at the sideline on a little fade route. Dom went up, got it, put it in his hands, came down with it, and on the way down, the Florida defensive back snatched that thing out of his hands, came down with possession, landed in bounds. It was honestly one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And you really can't do anything about that. Don Blaylock is a really, really good player and a guy that has really, really good hands, and he just kind of got sunned on one play. So, you really can't make an excuse for it.
Oh yeah, it happens.
Things like that are going to happen, and there's not really much you can do about it. But 3 total turnovers in this game, man. We talked about turnovers killing us. We've got really, 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 really good about limiting turnovers. It's something that this team has progressively gotten better with, and we've seen it kind of improve as the season goes on. 3 turnovers in this game to Florida's 0. So anytime you are -3 on the turnover battle and you win by 22 points, that's a sign of a pretty good football team, boys.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely
But
the
yeah,
sign of a good football team.
I know we're itching to talk about it, man. You got anything else you want to talk about in this game?
Man, I am already looking ahead at what we're about to talk about next. It's hard to stay away from it.
I know it is. I know it is. And let's go ahead and talk about it. Good old Rocky Top.
Oh, Rocky Bottom.
Oh my word, these Tennessee fans, man. Tennessee fans on social media, Tennessee pump uppers on ESPN. Anywhere you want to look, everybody's talking about Tennessee. They're talking about Hendon Hooker. They're talking about Jalen Hyatt. Cedric Tillman's back, man. This team's been scoring 50 points a game on Alabama. They didn't have their number 1 receiver. They've been running the ball. They've been playing pretty good defense. Hey, this team's actually top of the board when you talk about sacks. This offensive line's pretty good. Man, Jake, this is an all-around good team.
That's what I heard too.
And guess what? I mean, everyone talked about it. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? College football playoff rankings came around. First time. What'd they do? They put Tennessee number 1.
They did.
Put Ohio State number 2. They moved your undefeated Georgia Bulldogs back to 3. Well, why did they do that, you ask? Well, Tennessee's got 5 ranked wins. Didn't y'all know it? I
5
know
of them.
the teams they played might not be ranked anymore. They're the same teams that Georgia beat, and the same team that Georgia beat by more points than Tennessee did. But I'll tell you what, Tennessee, it's a better win for them because when Tennessee beat that Florida team, we didn't know they sucked yet.
It was a notable win.
Yeah, it was a notable win because we didn't know that Florida team was hot garbage. So what do? They win by 5. They give up 500 passing yards to Anthony Richardson. And the Dogs go down there and stomp them by 22. And the College Football Playoff Committee says, here you go, Tennessee. Take this number 1. You can roll with it.
You can have it.
Well, boys and girls, I'm here to tell you that number 1 ranking for your Tennessee Volunteers lasted all of about 5 days.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it because it's probably not going to happen again.
Because that number 1 team in the nation, number 1 offense in the nation, dominant team, this team was just like that 2019 LSU team, Jake.
That's what they said. I saw the graphic comparing the two.
I heard Hendon Hooker was the second coming of Joe Burrow. What does this team do? Surely they're going to go down there and stomp the Dogs in Athens. I mean, Neyland Stadium's the most electric atmosphere in college football. 130 decibels. There's no way Sanford Stadium's going to be able to do that. Boys, I'm here to tell you that this Tennessee Volunteers team stepped into Athens. They walked right into Sanford Stadium with the number 1 ranking right next to their name, and they toted home the absolute mother of all butt whoopings.
Yes, they did.
This was an absolute clinic put on by your Georgia Bulldogs. We talked about this Tennessee defense. Number 1 offense in the country, right? Can't deny it. Number 1 in yards. 82 defense. 126 passing defense in the country. 126 out of 131. Why do they do that, you ask? Jake and I talked about it. Tennessee has a very unique defensive scheme. They have this tendency to load the box, just like they did against Alabama. They sent the house of Bryce Young every single play and said, you know what, Bryce Young, if you want to beat us, you've got to be stellar. Bryce Young was stellar, but that Alabama team, unfortunately for them, is not the Georgia Bulldogs. Tennessee came out here, loaded the box against this Georgia team and said, you know what, y'all are not going to be able to run the ball on us. And guess what Georgia said? We'll go for 130 yards.
Yes.
Then they said, okay, well, we're going to send pressure So you guys are not going to be able to throw the ball on us because we're going to pressure Stetson Bennett. We said, okay, well, we'll throw for 260 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then
Easy.
Tennessee said, hold on. Well, surely to goodness, if you're running the ball on us and you're throwing the ball on us, it's just going to be a shootout. So our offense will go out there and just kind of dominate like we always have. Well, Hendon Hooker threw for under 200 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception.
He held him.
Boys, this game was nothing like the Tennessee Volunteers wanted it to be, and it is everything like we expected. This game did not go how Georgia fans hoped it would. This game went how Georgia fans knew it would. We knew this game was going to be exactly how it ended up. We held Tennessee to under 200 yards passing, under 100 yards rushing, absolutely dominated them on defense. 6 sacks, boys and girls. This is that same Georgia team that can't pressure quarterbacks. We can't do anything. Well, guess what? Look at the numbers. We might be one of the worst as far as sack numbers go. We are leading college football in quarterback pressures, leading them. We talked about why is that the case? We've talked about that several times on the show. It seems like the teams we play have a tendency to get the ball out quick. They scheme against it. They want to get the ball out on the perimeter, throw it outside the numbers. Talk about an offense like Kent State. Obviously, Kent State's Kent State. We can talk about that game as much as you want to. But that team is a team. That offense is a unit that is based on getting the ball out to the perimeter, getting it to the sidelines, getting the ball out of the number or outside the numbers. And Kent State actually did a pretty good job of doing that against us. Showed a couple things that we needed to work on defense, and that was perimeter defense, protecting against the screen. This Tennessee Volunteers team does not do that. Hendon Hooker sits back in the pocket and slings the ball 70 yards downfield. And when you got Keely Ringo, who you can criticize him on several aspects, but for the most part was very, very good. Kamari Lassiter, clamps. Dude was locked down all game long. And guess what we had to do? We put Malachi Starks on the boundary and said, guess what, Tennessee? You want to line up Jalen Hyatt, the guy who terrorized Alabama's defense, who's been terrorizing all of college football, 14 receiving touchdowns? Well, I'll take him, and I'll line up our number 1 covered safety, the best covered safety in all of college football, freshman Malachi Starks, and Malachi Starks locked him down. He was on him like white on rice, like stink on poop, like whatever you want to call it. This game was absolute domination. I know I'm rambling. I know Jake's got stuff he wants to say, but y'all, I've been waiting to talk about this for a long time. I've had it. I'm sick and tired of talking about this Tennessee Volunteers team. I'm sick and tired of it. And thankfully, we got these boys out of the playoff. They are out of the top 4. We got them out of Sanford Stadium. We can go out there. We can disinfect the town of Athens and get that stench of Tennessee orange out of there and the stench of the Tennessee fans who came down here smelling like whatever. Man, I mean, Rocky Top, you can take that song, you can shove it, you can take it back to Tennessee, and y'all can try and win out the rest of the year. And I hope y'all have a really, really good time sitting back there in your trailer park, stringing your Keystone Light and watching us play in the SEC Championship.
Yeah. I think that was a very good breakdown, Kenny. I'll give that one to you.
Sorry for rambling.
No. You bought it. It was very much deserved, man. I respect it a ton. But yeah, this Georgia team, they came out and they were dominant. Tennessee fans should thank God for rain, because without rain, this game they might have got beat by 40. It was 27-6 at half. The rain started coming down, and Tennessee got the ball at halftime. Guess what Georgia did? They forced Tennessee to punt the ball. Then we get the ball back and run a 15-play, 8-minute, and 44-second drive in the third quarter. Josh Heupel, that is our coach, kind of pumping the brakes a little bit and running this game out. If we didn't want to do that, we could have just kept racking up points on y'all. That is what this Georgia offense was doing. And I hope that Tennessee fans kind of sent a message to the rest of the nation whenever they did the whole little thing where they leaked Stetson Bennett's phone number and try to get people to call him all throughout the night. You don't want to awaken that beast. Because whenever Stetson Bennett is playing with the swagger he played with against Tennessee, it is nearly unstoppable. Stetson was on the field, and that was the most fun I have seen Stetson Bennett play football since he has been at the University of Georgia. We've seen Stetson. Stetson has been a guy that's kind of, he's always kind of kept his head down. He's always kind of, just do whatever he can to win the game. This year, things have changed a little bit. I think he's kind of gotten that moxie to him this year where he's kind of, I'm the number 1 quarterback. Nobody's challenged me at my job. Y'all messed up waking this kid up, because holy cow, Stetson was damn near perfect in this game if you were watching this game. From the flashy run play on the first touchdown of the game where he high stepped out of some pressure and then bolted for the pylon, dove, helmet to helmet. I will say the Tennessee player should have got ejected at that point, but they didn't even look at that. They were looking at the touchdown. And we talk about a throw to Ladd McConkey where Ladd McConkey broke outside and then cut up and absolutely left his defender 15 yards behind him. And Stetson threw the touchdown pass and then did the gladiator. Are you not entertained pose at midfield? Like, dude, Stetson was so much fun to watch.
That's
And
the Quavius right there.
yes, he was out there showing his full on. He spent the night in Atlanta before that because he was full on ATLian in that game. He was showing out for sure. But there's two MVPs in this game, and it was Stetson Bennett, and it was this Georgia defense. I'm not going to name one player because everybody came to show up. The play of the game on the defensive side for me was Keely Ringo. Keely Ringo lined up out wide against Cedric Tillman and absolutely ran his route for him. Ran the route better than what Cedric Tillman did. And that was the best ball Hendon Hooker threw all night if he meant to throw it to Keely Ringo because Keely Ringo was so on that route. It was ridiculous. Georgia just looked insane. We talk about with Tillman, 7 receptions, 68 yards, 6 receptions, 63 yards for Jalen Hyatt. This is a very, very similar game plan to what we had against Oregon. If you were watching the game, we did not mind giving them the underneath stuff. We were letting them throw their little 8-yard, curl routes, whatever you want to throw. But whenever you get to the red zone, if you can get to the red zone, if you don't make a mistake that's going to mess you up, good luck getting in because this Georgia team is not going to allow it. And it just so happened that Tennessee kind of didn't play along with Georgia in that aspect. They knew what we wanted to do, and they still tried to take the top off the defense, and it did not work. We talk about it, man. There was so much fun stuff, man. The pressure getting to the quarterback. In that second half, we were on Hendon Hooker so bad. He was trying his best to make plays in the backfield, and we were on him. And another thing about all these sacks, I do want to mention, a lot of these sacks were coverage sacks. They were sacks where Hendon Hooker had time in the pocket to read the field and make a decision. And he couldn't find anything open. And I know we were talking trash on Hendon Hooker, but guys, this is a top tier quarterback. Like, don't get that wrong. And if we can make a guy like that sit in the pocket and have to try to read a field for 5-6 seconds at a time, and he can't find nobody open, who is it? JJ McCarthy? Yeah. CJ Stroud with all the defenses you've played and finding guys wide open downfield all day long. Yeah. Who the hell else is even in the conversation? Max Duggan? Sir, you have played D2 schools all season long in your old Big 12 conference with your 6-3 Texas in second place, or Texas is 6-3 in conference, but they're second place in your conference. And you haven't even played them yet. We're not worried about you guys. Last year I thought we were going to walk our way to a national championship, and Alabama came in and kind of shut my mouth for a couple weeks in the SEC championship. This year's different, guys. This Tennessee team is a top 5 team in college football. I will say that confident as hell. You could put them against the majority of teams in college football, and they are probably going to win majority of the time. This is no discredit to how they have played and what they will play like. This is a showcase of how good and how dominant this Georgia Bulldogs football team is. And I am a fan of the Georgia Bulldogs. I try to talk about sports without bias. This is my completely unbiased opinion. Georgia is by far the number 1 team in the country, and there is nobody that can take that away from them.
Dude, I mean, you can talk about different things in this game. We talk about scheming. We talk about coaching. We talk about the positions that the coaches put the players in. Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football right now.
Yes.
It's not a conversation. Nick Saban's the GOAT. He can have that. I completely understand it. Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football right now. This coaching staff, Kirby Smart has said, is the most talented coaching staff he's ever been a part of. You talk about Todd Monken, Will Muschamp. These guys are absolutely elite from a recruiting perspective, from a play calling perspective, from a just absolute, everything. You put the puzzles on the puzzle board, and they go out there and they perform. And yes, in this game, do we have a perfect game plan against Tennessee? Yes. Did we execute the game plan perfectly? Yes. Everything we did went according to plan. But when you talk about this team stacking up against our team, what this game boiled down to is the playmakers on Tennessee. Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Jabari Small, and the defense for Tennessee lining up against our offense and our playmakers. And from a player perspective, this game came down to every single one of those 22 starters on the offensive and defensive side for Tennessee lined up against all 22 of our guys. And all 22 of our guys were better than each one of theirs. All across the board. There wasn't one player on that field for Tennessee that played better than any player on our field. It was absolutely total and utter domination from every aspect of the game. And when you want to talk about a team like Tennessee and everything that they've been able to do, the explosive offensive plays, the crazy downfield passing attack, you want to talk about all that, and you come into Sanford Stadium and play against this Georgia defense, and the whole conversation was surrounded, how is Georgia going to stop the number one offense in the nation? But nobody wants to talk about how both of the teams stack up on an even board. Tennessee, are they the number one offense in the nation? Sure. Well, guess who your number two offense in the nation is? The Georgia Bulldogs. What's Tennessee's defense ranked? 82nd in the nation. What's Georgia's defense ranked? 4th in the nation. Guys, why are we having the conversation of Tennessee's number one offense being a mismatch against Georgia's number one defense? And we're not talking about Georgia's number two offense against Tennessee's 82. It makes absolutely zero sense, and it's all hype-based. I get the hype behind Tennessee. They're an explosive team. They're fun to watch for a lot of people. But when you stack up against an actual, true contender, a team that is clearly the number one team in college football from a personal perspective, or from a personnel perspective, and from just total playing-wise perspective, you come out there and you got your butt whooped for 4 quarters, and that's exactly what happened. And you're right, Jake. Fans want to talk about the rain. Tennessee fans, they come out here and say, oh, well, the rain cost us a real chance in this game. Yeah, but, well, how about this Georgia team? Georgia's the team in this game that had scoring drives of 1 play, a scoring drive of 3 plays, and a scoring drive of 6 plays. And those drives right there of 10 total plays comprised of 143 passing yards. There was one team that this rain affected negatively, and that's the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yes.
You would have gotten beat by 40 points. You just said it, Jake. I mean, you talk about a team like Georgia. Our first 3 scoring drives in this game took a grand total of 12 plays. We went up 3 scores, and the next 2 scoring drives were a total of 27 plays, and we took 13 minutes off the clock. You're welcome for doing that, Tennessee, because it would have been ugly, ugly, ugly.
Yeah. And just to give fans a little bit more perspective on things, I want y'all to know that Kirby is a guy, and Todd Monken is the same. They're not going to open up the book for everybody. So when you see some of these wins and you think they're a little bit close, it's because we knew we could do that. When you see Kirby Smart open up that defensive playbook and start getting to some blitz packages and stuff that we have not seen all year, like he did in this game against Tennessee in that second half, and you see Todd Monken go into his bag, which is very, very deep, I must say. Just get ready, because we're still not there. We're still not all the way in the bag. That is going to come college football playoff time, which there is a chance we see y'all again. And let's let y'all know, it is, again, not going to be very fun. Kenny, I also have something I kind of want to mention. This is something I kind of looked at beforehand, and I was thinking earlier today about former Georgia teams and weapons that we've had in the past and guys that kind of seemed a little bit misused in the offense. We talk about guys like McCole Hardman and, all those guys we had. Could you imagine? Kirby Smart has always been a great coach, but he took that next step when he added Todd Monken to this staff. We like to poke fun at Jake Fromm. I do want to say I do think part of that was because of the offensive system that we kind of ran with James Coley and Jim Chaney as the offensive coordinators for a couple of years. Could you imagine those Georgia teams with Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator with these weapons? Because this is no disrespect at Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is a guy. Ladd McConkey is going to be playing in the NFL on Sundays in the near future. But could you imagine Todd Monken with the offensive weapons that Georgia used to have? Guys like Todd Gurley and guys... I don't even want to go back as far as Todd Gurley. But guys like DeAndre Swift and Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and all these running backs and all these star receivers we had for all these years. McCole Hardman would have been a first-round pick in Todd Monken's system. No doubt in my mind. He would have put together a 1,400 receiving yard season with 15 touchdowns if he had to. It's not really gonna happen in our system because we blow so many people out. But dude, Todd Monken is the truth, and I will say this: I don't think he's going to be at the University of Georgia next year. He is going to be the head coach somewhere else, I believe. I hope Kirby knows the type of guy he wants now. Somebody that is bold, somebody that likes to kind of change the system, somebody that likes to play present day football and not 1980 football. We have to get another guy in because, dude, Kirby. Ever since Kirby got that guy that can handle his offense for him and just nothing to worry about, this whole team has been different these past 2 years, man. And I wanted to take a little moment just to say, man, Todd Monken. I know you probably don't listen to the podcast. You're an old man, but thank you. You have changed this program so well, and I do not feel like you get talked about enough. This offseason, I had said I was talking about it, not on podcast or anything. I was saying that losing Todd Monken would be worse than losing Dan Lanning, and that is the definite truth of this. Because it doesn't matter who you put with Kirby on the defensive side of the ball, but dude, Todd Monken on the offensive side of the ball with Kirby's defense, it's a beauty to watch on Saturdays, man.
No, I agree with you 100%. And as soon as you said that, Jake, you said, imagine Todd Monken with some of these past Georgia teams. My mind immediately went to 2017.
Yes.
Immediately. Without a doubt. You talk about a team with Jake Fromm. I pulled up the stats right here. I know we talk about Jake Fromm from a different aspect, but 2,600 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Nick Chubb, 1,300 yards rushing. Sony Michel, 1,200 yards rushing. DeAndre Swift, 600. Elijah Holyfield, 300. Receiving, you got Javon Wims, Terry Godwin, McCole Hardman, Riley Ridley, Isaac Nada, Charlie Werner. And then you talk about the defensive side of the ball, and the team that we put out there. Roquan Smith, Lorenzo Carter, DeAndre Baker, Dominic Sanders, DeAndre Walker, Jonathan Ledbetter. I mean, we talk about Davin Bellamy, Richard LeCount. I mean, this team was absolutely loaded, man. And this 2017 team popped in my mind because this team is the team that should have broken the national championship drought.
Mm-hmm.
It should have happened. We all know what happened in that national championship game against Alabama. We know exactly what happened in the amazing Rose Bowl victory against probably the best team in the country, which is that Baker Mayfield-led Oklahoma Sooners team.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came out there against that Alabama team, and history's history. But yes, you talk about Todd Monken, man. Todd Monken has contributed to this team, aside from Kirby Smart, from a coaching perspective, more than anybody I have ever seen. He is, you were 100% right, absolutely more of a contribution or a contributor than Dan Lanning. Losing Todd Monken would affect this team more than losing Dan Lanning. I 100% agree with you. And while I'll give a little disclaimer here and say that, I do think Todd Monken is a generational type coach. He's a coach he's an offensive mind that can absolutely change a culture, change a program, change everything you do. And yes, I do agree that losing him would be more significant than losing Dan Lanning. I think also a part of that is Will Muschamp. If you lose Dan Lanning and you don't have Will Muschamp there, you probably see a little bit of a difference. Now, I'm not saying that it'd be a total loss because Kirby Smart is probably the most defensive-minded coach in college football. But Will Muschamp, man, is an absolute stud. This guy has been huge for this Georgia team. I know he already had his run with the head coaching gig. I'm not sure he'll get another opportunity. But we're going to pay him. We're definitely going to pay him the money. So if he wants to stick around here and have a really good career at the University of Georgia, I don't think anybody would be disappointed.
No, I agree. Muschamp is a guy too. Him and Satterfield, those are guys that could put
Yeah.
together a defense pretty well. It shows too. I mean, people thought this defense was going to fall off and decline after last year, and we are again allowing less than 10 points per game, which is a historic pace just for everybody out there.
It's absurd. It is absolutely absurd.
So, is there anything else on this Georgia-Tennessee game you'd like to talk about, Kenny?
Man, I just want to say go Dogs, man. It was an amazing. It wasn't an incredible game. It wasn't, but it was an absolute joy to watch because seeing us play the first half like we did, and then come out there the second half, and the tears of Volunteer fans all over the nation falling out of the sky on top of Sanford Stadium. It was a beautiful illustration of how this Georgia season has been. And
Yes.
all the this and that and the Kent State and the Missouri and the blah 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 and the Tennessee beat Alabama all came crashing down on top of two teams lining up against each other and showing each other this is the best I got, and one team was just clearly better than the other. And you can't ask for more, Dog fans. That you really can't. We're headed into a big matchup, traveling to Starkville to take on Mississippi State this week. Um, I know Mississippi State's not the best team in the world, but they got a good dynamic offense. They got a little bit of a sleeper defense. And Kirby said it today in his presser, man. If you think this team only throws the ball, you're mistaken. They can run the ball too. Mike Leach is a great coach. This is a team you can't get caught sleeping against because they can put up some points. I know this Georgia defense is, like you just mentioned, Jake, 10 points a game, absolutely generational. And we'll dive into more of the numbers next week. But, Tennessee, it was great. Let's enjoy it. But, kind of keep that 24-hour rule, y'all. We got to move to the next week. Let's get ready, head towards Mississippi State. We're playing for that SEC championship right now.
Yeah, for sure. It was a fun week, man. But like you said, you gotta keep that rule going, and we'll be back on this thing tomorrow. And that's whenever this is gonna be done with. We're gonna be on to the next week. But until then, man, go Dogs, baby. And it's gonna be go Dogs going forward. But this is a really really this one feels a little bit better off the tip of the tongue.
Boy, does it. You are absolutely right.
So I have some Falcons stuff too. But would you
Me
like
too.
to discuss some college football playoff stuff first? Would you like just to kind of give like a little breakdown of your thoughts on these rankings that just
Yeah,
came out earlier today?
why don't you rip them all for us? I don't have them in front of me. I'm pulling them up.
All right, so I'll do the top 10 because I feel like that's kind of the more meaningful ones. We also have a couple of them that's not in the top 10 that might be able to make a little bit of a push at some point. Number one, Georgia. We retook that number one spot by no surprise. I think everybody kind of expected that after our win against the former number one Tennessee Volunteers. Number two, Ohio State. Again, no surprise. They had a little bit of a struggler against Northwestern this past week, but the weather was crazy. For a team with a quarterback like CJ Stroud, that can happen. Three, Michigan. Two Big Ten teams in the top three, so that's pretty notable. One of these teams have to lose at some point because I think they have a huge matchup 2 weeks from now. So keep an eye on that. At four, we have the undefeated TCU, a team that's playing in that Big 12 conference. Not too much competition so far, but they do have three pretty big games coming up against Texas, Baylor, and Iowa State, and that does not include a conference championship game. This is a team that, in my opinion, has to go undefeated, like nearly has to go undefeated to make a college football playoff because you're not going to take a one-loss TCU over a one-loss Tennessee or a one-loss Ohio State or a one-loss Michigan. Like I don't think that's really going to be what happens. So they kind of have to keep on riding that high horse to keep that up. At five, we see Tennessee, and this is where things get a little bit not scary for Georgia fans because we know what we can do against Tennessee, but they are sitting in the most prime position to sit out a conference game and just snatch up a playoff spot. So I'd kind of keep my eye on that, see how some of these teams around them do in the coming weeks to see if they can kind of move them around. But I will say this: if they go into like championship weekend, conference championship weekend, ranked at five, I don't think they will, but it's so hard to judge because Ohio State and Michigan have to play before that. And I do think that whoever loses that game is going to drop lower than Tennessee. My one argument is that, and this is for Georgia fans, a one-loss Tennessee that's only lost came against Georgia, and that's beat Alabama and blew out LSU, who's about to win the SEC West, is more notable than a team that has their only lost against Ohio State or Michigan, vice versa.
Yeah.
To me, at least, in my opinion. And all the hype the media has been giving them, I have a very hard time seeing them not put Tennessee in if Tennessee finishes the season out strong.
I think one interesting thing too, talking about the regular season, not necessarily getting into the conference championship conversation. It might be this week, but Tennessee, in my opinion, this is a realistic thing, but I'm just saying, in my opinion, for what I think we're going to see from these teams, Tennessee should get jumped. I don't know if it'll be this week, but probably next week at least by Oregon on the playoff.
I don't think they will.
Well, the reason I say that is because Tennessee will round out their regular season with Missouri, unranked South Carolina, and unranked Vandy. And Oregon's going to round out their regular season with 24th ranked Washington and 13th ranked Utah. So I think there's going to be a good chance that if Oregon can win out both of those games headed into their rivalry game against Oregon State, you may see them get jumped there with 2 additional ranked wins. And one reason I believe that is because they're actually pretty close. This is actually the first list I was able to see that showed total points on the voting scheme or the voting poll. And Oregon and Tennessee were actually pretty close. 1339 were the votes for Tennessee compared to Oregon's 1258. So you're under 100-point difference between those two. So I'm curious to see if Oregon goes and beats that ranked Washington team this week, and then beats a top 15 Utah team, if they will jump them. And then you talk about Pac-12 championship. That's going to be probably Oregon USC, which they will certainly make the jump at that point if they win.
Yeah. USC and UCLA both have to still play each other, so that kind of decides who's going to be taking that second spot. And those are two teams that also have a chance at it. You know, if you know, I think USC a little bit more because they are ranked at that 8th spot. You can still kind of make a play at that point to jump up, especially if you do beat that Oregon team in that Pac-12 championship. But dude, it's just so hard because I look at Tennessee, and I know we joke around about their 5 ranked wins. But just media wise, just looking at statistics, we're talking about a team that lost by 46 to Georgia, or a team that lost by 2 possessions against Georgia. And
No, I think that's the argument. 100%. My curiosity stems from the playoff and how they value that. Do you think? I feel like personally, when we see this playoff rankings year after year, it's a little bit geared towards recency bias. And I'm wondering if maybe the college football playoff is going to discount Tennessee a little bit more than they would Oregon because Tennessee just lost to Georgia and Oregon lost week 1.
no, I can see
That's where my,
that.
that's where my question comes.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. The Utah argument is kind of a weird one too, because Utah did jump back up the rankings, but this is the team that lost to Florida. Like I know it was week 1, but still, it's there's a lot of stuff that could happen in this playoff thing, and honestly, like none of this matters until that final one comes out and decides which teams actually make it. But dude, there's so much flip flopping that could happen. So I'm going to continue down this list real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we got rounding it out. We got Oregon at 6, LSU at 7, USC at 8, Alabama at 9, and Clemson at 10. We also have a couple teams that could make a possible play, and the only one I could really see that being would be number 12, UCLA. I think UCLA has a possibility. And Ole Miss is also a team at 11. They have to have a lot of stuff break their way, aka win out and beat Georgia in the SEC championship, and have LSU lose one of these games coming up. So they have to have some stuff break their way to have a possibility. But yeah,
Have they already played?
yes, they've already played. Ole Miss's only loss came against LSU, I believe.
Okay.
So that's
So
kind
they
of
got the tiebreaker.
yes, they're both 1-loss teams. They both only lost 1 game. Well, actually, LSU's a 2-loss team, but one of their losses came against Florida State in week 1, so that don't really matter. But they both 1-loss teams in conference, and LSU owns the tiebreaker. LSU's only loss in conference was that blowout loss against Tennessee.
So LSU, their only 2 notable matchups remaining in the season are going to be Arkansas and A&M.
Yes.
Which I will say, I mean, Texas A&M is not a very good football team, but that LSU Texas A&M game seems to be one of the most exciting games every single year.
Yes, and Alabama still has a shot too. Alabama, if they win out and LSU loses both games against Arkansas and Texas A&M, Alabama will win the SEC West. It's not a very probable thing, in my opinion. I do think that LSU is going to win one of these games. Arkansas and Texas A&M both, neither of them have been on the same tier as what a lot of people thought they were going to be going into this year. They're both back into the SEC West in rankings, so I think Texas A&M has 1 conference win this year. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into that.
Well, Ole Miss will have to lose 2, right? Did you say that?
For Alabama, no, because if Alabama wins out,
They play.
yeah, they play this coming up
I
weekend.
forgot
So
that.
yeah, if Alabama wins out, that means they would own the tiebreaker. Ole Miss.
Yeah, so Ole Miss's only shot is to beat Bama this week.
LSU clinches. LSU eliminates Alabama. Let's say LSU eliminates Alabama if they win this weekend. If LSU wins
Right.
this weekend and Alabama wins this weekend, LSU clinches the SEC West.
There you go.
If Ole Miss wins this weekend and LSU win this weekend, Ole Miss is still alive. But that would mean that LSU would have to lose at some point.
Well, let's go ahead and say this then. I'm curious to see. Give me your playoff projection.
My playoff projection right now. Okay. Oh, Lord. My playoff projection right now, I'm going Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Tennessee 3, Oregon 4.
I want to say what I think it should be is Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Tennessee 4. I don't know if they'll do a first round matchup between Georgia and Tennessee.
That's my biggest issue. I think they would try if they had the possibility. We've seen it in the past. We never see SEC teams rank or match up in the first round of the playoff. It's like it never happens. In the past years, we've seen two SEC teams make it a lot. And most of the time, they kind of do them at 1 and 3. That's the only reason I put Tennessee at 3.
No, I agree with that. I think that's probably the key point here. And obviously, this is pending TCU losing, which very well could happen. You mentioned it. They got three tough
Hmm.
games coming up. Um,
And then a fourth one
no,
with the playoff with the conference
right.
championship game too, which is right now it's looking like it's going to be another game against Texas, which I would probably take Texas in one of those games. And Vegas is on Texas right now too, so there's a lot of interesting things in that matchup.
I think the interesting thing comes up with the ACC. Um, I was surprised. Let me pull this up. I was surprised to see Clemson stay as high as they did. Um, I don't think truly as a football fan, I don't think that if Clemson wins out and wins the ACC that they will jump Tennessee. I don't think
No,
that they deserve to, and I think Tennessee is a better team. But it does raise my eyebrows a little bit because you're looking at Ohio State and Michigan. One of those teams will lose. TCU has a really good shot at losing. Um, Oregon and USC or UCLA, one of those teams are going to have to lose. And LSU in the SEC championship, all of these teams are ranked above Clemson, with the exception of UCLA. So there's going to be a shakeup, and I think it's probably going to become a conversation in the press about what does this playoff committee do with Clemson. Like I said, I don't believe that they deserve to get a spot above Tennessee. I think Tennessee would beat Clemson if they played. But we know how the playoff committee is. They love Clemson, and I don't know, man. It's really going to come down to the wire. We say it every year that it comes down to the wire, but really this year because there are so many conferences, we're not used to seeing a team like TCU at 9-0 this far into the season. Um, we're not used to seeing a team like LSU, be as good as they are, or in the leading the SEC West right now, and we're dang sure not used to seeing USC contending. So it's just a really, really interesting situation where we're saying right now this season.
it really is because recent years we've seen, obviously we talk about Georgia and Alabama facing off last year, and then Alabama beating us, we still make it. So we've seen two teams make it from the SEC, but it's been two teams that have both played. You go back to 17, that was the year that Alabama did not make the conference championship game. We played Auburn in the conference championship game, blew them out, and Alabama snuck their way in, kind of like how Tennessee's, on the door right now. So it is a very interesting thing to look at. And, you mentioned TCU playing that Big 12. It is rare to see a team like that 9-0 right now because this is usually a conference where they do play decent football, but they usually beat up on each other pretty badly. Like one of these teams are going to hand each other a loss at some point. And I do think that's still going to kind of stand true. So I do think TCU is going to lose a game at some point. That's the reason I left them out of my top four. Um, Kind of the big one to me is the Big Ten. Last year they had that third team with Michigan State that was kind of, separating things a little bit more. And seeing two teams in the top three from the Big Ten is very, very wild to me. Last year during this time of the year, Ohio State was kind of falling off the radars, especially after losing to Michigan. It was kind of over. But whichever team loses that game also has a conversation to beat in the college football playoff. To me,
Especially if it's Michigan, I think. If you head into that final matchup and Michigan loses to the number 2 team in the country, and neither Michigan or Tennessee plays in the Big Ten or plays in their conference championship, it's gonna raise the question of what do you do with those two teams. It's gonna be a really interesting thing, man. I'm curious to see how this shakes up. And I want to say too, we talk about the college football playoff rankings. I want to mention the AP poll for a second because there are 63 first place votes on the AP poll. 63, I don't know what you call them, representatives vote on the top team in the country. Georgia got 62 of the 63 votes. I don't know which one of you buffoons gave a first place vote to Ohio State, but you should have your spot on the AP poll taken from you immediately.
Revoke it right now.
That's ridiculous.
Revoke it right now. We are getting a little bit long on the podcast, Kenny, I will say. So you want to go ahead and hop into some Falcon stuff? We'll definitely be touching on this stuff as the weeks go. We'll probably do this every week. So
Absolutely.
we'll kind of dip into a little bit of Falcon stuff. Would you like to kick it off?
Yeah, man, let's kick it off. We missed a couple weeks here on the pod. We already talked about that. Let's talk about this Panthers game first. It was a day before Halloween, October 30th matchup with the Panthers. Jake and I actually watched this game together. This was a pretty interesting one. Absolute barn burner. Overtime win for the Falcons, came out ahead 37-34 in this game. A really, really good game collectively by this Falcons team, I will say. You got to see Marcus get a little bit more action through the air. Finished with 253 and 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, but for the most part, Marcus played a really, really good game in this matchup. 8 incompletions. He went 20 for 28. Caleb Huntley, we talk about him. Friend of the show. We love Caleb. Led the team with 91 yards rushing. Big game from Mr. Huntley. 167 yards on the ground. I already mentioned with the passing yards. 253 through the air. This Falcons team, this seemed to be one of the most complete games from the offensive side of the ball that we've seen in a while, especially coming off the past episode where we talked about the big letdown against that Bengals team, where we talked about how we got down 3 possessions early and didn't really give Marcus a chance to put us back in the game. We didn't really try to air the ball out at all. So really, really good to see the Falcons come out here and put a little bit more of a offensive push on things. You saw Drake London get some action, 4 receptions for 31 yards. Saw Kyle Pitts, 5 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown. These are 2 guys, man. When you spend top 10 draft picks on key players on your offense in the passing game like this, you have got to utilize them more. And that was probably our biggest critique in that Bengals game, is get these guys the football, give them an opportunity to make plays. And that's exactly what we did in this Carolina game, man. Really, really good game for the Falcons, and very, very happy to come away with the win in this one.
Yeah, that was a great game. Really, really fun to want to watch for fans. DJ Moore took off his helmet on a possible, game winning touchdown, and it pushed the extra point back, and they ended up missing the extra point. It was kind of a funny moment, and then we go to overtime. And Younghoe Koo comes up, and Falcons fans, we kind of know what to expect when that happens. He's pretty automatic outside of this past week against the Chargers where he missed a 50-yarder, but 50 yards is a long way, and Koo is a top 3 kicker in football, and that's what we expect. You touched on a lot of stuff pretty good though, so I'll just let you have that one.
All right, well, let's let you kick off the following week.
All right, so this is a game going against the Chargers that I think a lot of people were excited for, because this Chargers team is a team that going into the game they were 4-3, a team that's kind of not met expectations as much as what people have thought. But we all know they're a pretty good football team. Coming into the game, they were without their top 2 wide receivers, Keenan Allen and why is his name, Mike Williams. But to be fair, the Falcons are also without AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward, so it's kind of a even, you take an eye for an eye matchup type deal right there. So a little bit of an interesting thing. But this is a game that if I told Falcons fans we limited the Chargers to 20 points, you would think that we'd probably, you'd be fine with that. We would accept that all day long, because we know what this offense can do when it gets rolling. But the offense on our side really did not show up. We talk about getting the ball more to Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and that's exactly what we tried to do. 14 of Mariota's 23 attempts went towards those guys. They had 14 targets between the two, and they racked up a whopping 5 catches for 50 yards. So it was not a very successful thing, whether that be on the receivers or on Mariota. A lot of just sloppy football in this game too. Drake London had a ball when we were in the red zone where he caught it, and he kind of got wrapped up a little bit, and Khalil Mack came and just snatched the ball out of his hands and took off running the other way. Rookie, welcome to the league moment right there. Also, Taquan Graham, man. Dude, I don't even want to say I'm mad about it, because it was kind of a goofy play in general. Austin Eckler ran the ball at the middle. They were already in field goal range. They were already going to win the game. And he fumbles the ball, and Taquan Graham picks it up and starts running it down the field and just drops the ball. And Chargers get it back. complete a long pass to Joshua Palmer, and the rest is history. So this is a game that I look at for the Falcons. I don't have any blaring takeaways or any super things we need to change going forward for this Falcons team. This is just one of those games that if you play better, you're probably going to win it majority of the time. Like if we just go out there and play better football to what the Chargers were playing out there, we're probably going to win this game more often than not. And we just played really sloppy football, and it didn't turn around. A positive note in this game, we did see Cordero Patterson back on the field, which Falcons fans, everybody loves Cordero Patterson. He's awesome, and that just adds to this two-headed monster running back group we had before with Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley. Now we add the main man back with Cordero Patterson. And he put together 13 carries, 44 yards, and 2 tuds. So he had himself a little bit of a game. He got some touches. There was one play where I think it was at like the 5-yard line. He just lowered his shoulder on somebody and just plowed his way into the end zone. It's kind of crazy to me watching Cordero Patterson when I was young and growing up and, 13, 14 years old. He was a punt returner, like the best one in the league. He was insane at returning kicks, and now all of a sudden he's a bruising running back. Now that I'm an adult 22-year-old man, things changed in life, and it didn't really take a turn that I expected, but really, really happy to see him back on the field, man.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned it really well with getting CPAT back in the game, getting back into the fold on the offense. My biggest critique in this game is when you already said it, 14 attempts between your top two receiving threats and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and you're just not able to get the ball to them. 5 receptions total out of those 14 attempts is not very efficient, especially when they're totaling only 50 yards.
No.
This just seemed like a game where you need to get the ball into your playmakers' hands a little bit more. And we tried to for the most part, but I think it's a pretty unacceptable way to go in this game when Cordero Patterson gets 1 reception for 9 yards.
Yes.
Um, when you're playing against a team like the Chargers, who do have a very good defense, especially on the perimeter, you already mentioned it with Khalil Mack, absolute grown man. This team is stacked in the secondary. They're stacked at the defensive line. The pass rush is nuts. The linebacking core is great. From pretty much all aspects of this defense, this is a very, very well balanced team. You have to take advantage of your mismatches, and I think the biggest mismatch on this Falcons team, really, in any game, is going to be Kyle Pitts and Cordero Patterson. And when you have a guy like Cordero Patterson in the backfield, I think you've got to do more to get him the ball in space and let him make a move. And 2 touchdowns on the ground is great, but when you're playing a team like the Chargers, like I just mentioned, a defense like that, you got to get the ball in the air a little bit more. And what better way to do it than to dump it, on a wheel route out the backfield, maybe a little, perimeter play to CPAT, get him the ball a little bit more. So I'd like to see that moving forward. Maybe they were trying to limit his touches a little bit first game back. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, you limit this Chargers team to 20 points, Jake. You said it. It's a really, really good thing for the defense. I know they're missing a couple weapons, but we're missing a couple key pieces. So, yeah, I mean, this seemed like a game where we really had an opportunity to win it. A couple weird things happened down there at the end, but for the most part, just kind of a miscue day for the Falcons. Don't want to write it off at all. You never want to write off a mid-season game against a team that you have a really good chance of beating. But a couple things that I think we could have done to be a little bit more productive on the offensive side of the ball.
No, I agree for sure. Before we get out the Falcons talk, I do want to mention Tyler Algier, man. He had, a career game so far for this kid. And, we talk about Caleb a lot because Caleb is a guy we know he's a hometown kid. But I also do want to give love to Tyler Algier because this guy, drafting him out of BYU as a mid-round pick, he has been everything and more that Falcons fans could, expect from him. He put together a 10-carry, 99-yard day on the ground. He is fun to watch. And that's one thing about all three of these running backs the Falcons run out there. You very rarely see them lose yardage. They are all three of them are doing everything they can to stay up and keep toting. Like they are three power backs. They are three horses back there. And it's kind of like old school football you get to watch with the Falcons. That's coming. You see all the national things saying that the Falcons are one of the most fun teams in football to watch because we do things so differently in a league and an era nowadays where you see every single team go out there and these quarterbacks are throwing the ball 50 times a game. The Falcons are just going to run the ball 40 times right down your throat and see if we could beat you. Maybe it's not the best method to win games whenever you're going against teams like Cincinnati, like we saw earlier, or later down the line playoffs if we make it that far. Or, later season games against some of these teams we have coming up. But it is very entertaining football to watch in the NFL because different from college, these are all grown men on this football field. So to see another grown man run through other grown man's face, has to be one of the most fun things to watch for a dude and a female. Like if you like that, but I just know from my experience personally, seeing an NFL player just plant through another NFL player's face is like, holy cow. Maybe some of these guys are human and some of these guys are robots. I don't know what is what, but they're all amazing at football.
Right. And to play devil's advocate and side with this coaching staff a little bit, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. When you are averaging more yards per carry than you are yards per pass attempt, it's probably hard to get the ball in the air. You're you're gonna want to keep that ball on the ground as much as possible. When you're averaging 5.7 yards per carry between these guys, you want to keep the ball on the ground. So I understand that, but yeah, I mean, when it gets down to the nitty gritty and you got to win the game, you got to do everything you can to get the ball in space to your playmakers. And we tried to, we just weren't really able to. So look for that moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Well, that's it for me on Falcons talk, Kenny.
That is it for me, man. I'm pumped to get back on the pod, y'all. It's always a good time to get on here and talk some ball with y'all, especially when we miss a week and we can talk about some really, really good key points from our teams. Obviously, first episode of the week is kind of our review of everything that happened since we were last on here, and the second episode this week, probably Thursday night, we'll get on here and talk about what we've got, or excuse me, tomorrow night. We'll get on here and talk about what we are going to be looking at moving forward up into this next week. We got some pretty good matchups across the board, so I'm just glad to be out here and get you guys some more content.
Oh yeah. I also want to mention too. I think Kenny did a really good job right there. But just thank y'all so much for the support. And as Kenny mentioned, can't wait to get back on this. Week to week and discuss all this stuff. We're really getting to the prime time of all this. Football action and stuff. Where I feel like it just started and it's already at the end. So we're not quite there yet, but we are fastly approaching, especially on the college side. Just a couple more breakdowns left this season. Where we're looking at 3 regular season games. We're looking at SEC championship. We're looking at 2 college football. So we got 7 games for Georgia to break down, and we have 7 games that we're going to be recapping positively on for Georgia. So we have a lot of fun stuff coming ahead. But yeah, just thank y'all so much, and I can't wait to see you guys next time.
Absolutely. We'll